far from being awkward. This playstyle is the single most efficient way to hit maximum DPS in the entire game. And because it's so efficient, this means you have plenty of room on your build to build in anything else your heart desires. Yeah, you're only going to need 2 armor skills for this build. Insane. You want a high defense build? Go for it. You want high damage output for your melee attacks? Go for it. Want a dive bomb? Go for it. You want wide range support built into your set? That's right. Go for it. Want evasion and mobility? That's what I picked. For those of you who want to jump straight into this build, I'm going to give you the easy walkthrough. It's so simple, I can say it in just a few seconds. Get the Amatsu Insect Glaive, or the highest attack power glaive you can get. Get the Supercharged Rampage Deco, Wirebug Whisperer 3, Wind Mantle 3, and don't forget the 5th requirement, the Bilbo Bricks Kinsect. That's the build in its entirety. Now, how do you play it? Gather your 3 extracts, use the Awakened Kinsect attack successfully, then blow up all your powder with the Kinsect special move called Powder Vortex. Each cycle of this will do anywhere from 2,000 to 4,000 damage. Don't believe it? Then just keep watching the video, because this one will blow your mind. If you look up Powder Vortex on YouTube, you will find a handful of videos describing this attack in Monster Hunter Rise Sunbreak. You will also see a lot of terrible Powder Vortex gameplay. You'll also see a lot of bad advice, and you'll also see a lot of very unoptimized builds and playstyles. There's just a couple videos where I would say people are taking the fullest advantage of this attack, and they're kind of hard to spot. But don't worry about all that, because over on our Discord, we have some geniuses to help us sort it all out. A member by the name of Zacharias, you may be familiar with him from a previous video. He has been experimenting with Powder Vortex for quite some time. He finds it completely fascinating, and I was kind of skeptical at first. It sounded silly. An Insect Glaive build where you don't use your Insect Glaive to attack the monster? How effective could that possibly be? Yeah, I know. In my easy mode video, I said you can fight the monster and win using just the Kinsect attack. And that is true. It does take a little bit longer than a typical fight, but you can boost the power of that Kinsect up enough to get a useful enough DPS just from Kinsect attacks. But Powder Vortex takes this, it's a cliche to say takes it to the next level. It doesn't take it to the next level. It's on a different plane of existence from Kinsect attacks. It's probably the single most unique playstyle in the game. So what is so special about Powder Vortex, and how do you get it to work well? Well, it's actually a lot easier than you might think, and it's definitely a lot easier than the experts think. So let's take a look. Now, when I first started reading about this from Zacharias' notes, I was a little confused because there's a lot to know about this, but to get the basic playstyle down, you don't really need to know that much. Now, this playstyle is different from a lot of Powder Vortex playstyles you'll see on YouTube. And I think the reason why people put this build in a meme category is because they're not using an effective attack combo with it. And they may not really understand the attack well enough in order to optimize your build for it and to get the most out of it. So I'm going to simplify it for you here right now, and then we'll go into some of the details. Insect Glaive has a switch skill called Awakened Kinsect Attack. Now, this attack alone is really nice. What you do is you get your extracts using your Kinsect, then you use the Awakened Kinsect attack. It only uses 1 Wirebug. You aim it at the monster. It will do several hits. If you got the right build and the right Kinsect, that damage will be really big. It's also important to note that if you do this with just 1 extract or 2 extracts, those numbers won't be so big. So you want to do this when you have all 3 extracts activated. So you use this Awakened Kinsect attack. It hits the monster for big damage. When it hits the monster, it leaves some powder floating around near the monster, near where you hit it. And if you go over and attack that powder, it'll do a little bit of damage. But that is not the best way to use this powder. The best way to use this powder is to activate it with something called Powder Vortex. And Powder Vortex is not a switch skill. It's not even a skill that you have. You don't do the Powder Vortex attack. It's a Kinsect skill. That's right. It's a Kinsect special attack. You want to make sure you're using a Powder Kinsect. There are a couple different ones. You want to make sure you're using the Bilbo Bricks Kinsect, because this guy is going to make sure you get the highest damage out of this attack. Here's how the powder vortex works. You send out your Kinsect to hit the monster, and then you do the Kinsect special attack, which is the right trigger X+A for Switch controller. Then the Kinsect will go to that spot. It will suck in all of the powder clouds to it, and it will explode them. And the more powder clouds you have, the higher the damage that this attack does. And this attack is not 40 or 100 or 200 or whatever you might get from attacking those powder clouds yourself. This attack is in the thousands of damage. Okay, that's right. Thousands of points of damage. The more clouds you have, the more damage you're going to get. And so it's important to do the Awakened Kinsect attack with all 3 extracts to get all the clouds out there. And in fact, if you have 2 people or 3 people or hell, even 4 people playing this style together, you can detonate everyone's powder at the same time. It's amazing. All right, so I said I was going to keep it simple. So yeah, get all 3 extracts, throw your Awakened Kinsect attack at the monster, then send your Kinsect out to the monster again and hit the special attack button, shoulder and X+A. There's a little bit of a delay, and if the monster's moved away, that's fine. You can recall your Kinsect before he explodes the powder and reposition everything. That's it. Just repeat that over and over. Now the trick is getting your extracts quickly. So you got to practice that, and timing the powder vortex special attack such that the monster hasn't moved away from where you targeted it. That's it. So what does the build look like? Well, your build can look like anything you want it to. There's very little that you need on the build to make this effective. You can customize your powder vortex build to do anything else you want. So Zacharias's build has a lot of group healing stuff. He's got wide range and a bunch of other stuff that helps out the team. I'm a little more selfish, so my build is all about my own survivability and a couple of extras. Your build could look like a typical Insect Glaive build, but also be optimized for the powder vortex. You could do regular Insect Glaive attacks, whatever your favorite ones are, as well as the powder vortex stuff. The problem with that is if you're attacking the powder, you're going to explode it, which is going to make the powder vortex Kinsect attack far less effective or ineffective completely. So what do you need on your set to really take advantage of powder vortex? Well, number 1, this requires wire bugs. So let's get the Wind Mantle 3 and the Wirebug Whisperer 3. Pretty easy choice right there. Now I take Defiance 5, so I don't have to deal with roars or anything like that. Looking down this build, there's nothing else you need to make this work. So how else do you optimize for this damage? So a mistake I see a lot of people making is they use the wrong Insect Glaive. The glaive you want for this is the glaive with the highest attack power. Affinity doesn't matter. The element on it doesn't matter. And yes, blast attack Insect Glaive does not affect powder vortex in the slightest. So if you like blast attack as an attack, that's fine. It does nothing for the powder vortex attacks. Things like blast attack 3 and Teostra Blessing 2 don't help your powder vortex build at all. So the key thing is get a glaive with the highest attack power you can get. So for me, I'm using the Amatsu Glaive. So the higher your raw attack, the higher your powder vortex damage is going to be. So you might be thinking, well, why not attack boost 7? Because attack boost 7 doesn't change the numbers. It's all dependent on your weapon's raw attack power. That's it. My recommendation is Amatsu Glaive. Nobody else is using Amatsu Glaive that I can see on YouTube. And the Bilbo Bricks Kinsect. And let's not forget the Supercharged Rampage Deco. This decoration will increase the damage that your Kinsect attacks do. Yes, including the powder vortex. This deco alone is what sets this build apart, and everything else about optimizing the damage on this is about how well you target and how well you get your extracts. There are some cool things you can do to reposition the dust clouds. For example, you can target the monster, send your Kinsect out, do the special attack, but before the powders explode, see, the powders are going to get sucked in to where you targeted. And before those powders explode, you got to recall your Kinsect to cancel that powder vortex attack. And so now you've successfully moved powder across the screen. If you're really clever, you can make that work. It does take a lot of practice to get there and isn't really necessary, I'd say. If you can get your shots off quick enough, this is going to work really well without having to manipulate the dust clouds. So things I like on my build, I like survivability skills. Using this method, you can do it from a pretty safe distance. And yeah, you're going to get targeted once in a while, but it's not difficult to avoid monsters in this game. But I like to make it even easier. So I put Evade Window 5 on my build. Like I said before, Defiance 5, which I would put on your build anyway. I like to do a little bit of extra damage. So I put Powder Mantle on my build. Powder Mantle 3, Burst 3, Heartbreaker 3. Heartbreaker is really nice. And then I've got the Kashala Blessing 3 for the heal recovery, Evade Extender 3, great for positioning, great for closing distance, recovery up 3. I've got Jump Master and Master Mounter. So I've got the Jump Master skill in case I am leaping toward the monster for whatever reason. It's going to prevent me from getting knocked back. And then I have the Master Mounter because I'm spamming switch skills. That's what this build does. And so Master Mounter will allow you to get that mount on the monster quicker, which means more downtime for the monster. And of course, the shock absorber for multiplayer. That's it. That's really it, folks. This is how you do Powder Vortex properly. I want to thank Zacharias for doing a ton of testing on this. Yeah, there is some of this information on YouTube, but it's not all there. And if you try to find this stuff in the Reddit guides on the so-called Monster Hunter meta subreddit, you're not going to find it. If you try to ask the experts about this playstyle, you're not actually going to get a response. Why not? If this is such an effective way to play the game, why won't the experts on the Monster Hunter meta subreddit tell you how best to do it? Well, here's the reason why. It's kind of sad, actually. The Monster Hunter meta subreddit presupposes, that's their word, presupposes that you're playing perfectly or nearly so in order to take advantage of their builds. But if you look at the details of the Insect Glaive builds, you will see this quote. Powder Kinsects have their utility because they will deal hit zone independent damage. However, because of the awkwardness of the playstyle they require to truly make use of Powder Vortex, they will generally perform worse, especially in multiplayer, they say. Okay, so if they presuppose that everyone is playing perfectly in order to use their builds, then why do they say that Powder Kinsects and Powder Vortex are too awkward? Why that word, awkward? What that tells me is they aren't very good at it. And since they can't get good at Powder Vortex, well, then it can't possibly be meta because they can't get good at it. But let me tell you something. You can get good at it because I've seen it happen. There are several people on our Discord who are very good at this playstyle. I think I'm pretty good myself, but I'm not at their level. So because the Monster Hunter meta subreddit can't figure out how to do this well, it's for some reason not meta. Okay, doesn't make any sense at all, especially considering that they assume you're playing nearly perfectly anyway. So why not just assume you're playing nearly perfectly with Powder Vortex and crunch some numbers? If you did that, you would see that the DPS on this is insane and very comparable to any of their other builds. But hey, I understand nobody's perfect. I get that. So I'll give them a pass on that. But they can't look at me and say, well, you have to be perfect to use our sets, right? A little bit of hypocrisy there. If you like the video so far, click the like button. Definitely subscribe to the channel. Channel's growing very quickly and we're rapidly approaching the end of life of this game. And I'm still making videos about it. Why? Because I love Monster Hunter. That's why. And thousands of people are still playing it. That's why you're clicking on the video. You're still playing it too. You're always going to get a ton of Monster Hunter information on this channel. So definitely worth subscribing. You're going to learn something new every week. And you're going to learn things here that you can't find anywhere else. Not even in the guides of the experts. Check out my gaming channel, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you in the next one. Special thanks to Zacharias and everyone else on the Discord server for testing things out and playing like champions.